Today's sponsor is DistroKid. They are a music distribution platform that's geared towards independent DIY artists. We'll be taking a closer look at one of their many free promotional tools. This one's called Hyperfollow. It's essentially a link and bio link, which personally I use across all of my social media. I also use it for my single releases as well. You could claim as many pages as you want for free, so it's great for that as well. More on that later in this video. So you're probably here if you're interested in going DAWLESS. Maybe you're just testing the waters. Maybe you're already experienced with the DAWLESS world, a seasoned veteran perhaps. I personally have been going pretty hard on it for a few years now, and it's sort of become what this channel is about. Mostly. From what I've seen, there's essentially two camps of DAWLESS users. So the user that wants to succeed, that wants to come out with a product. Obviously the motivation or the reason behind that product might be different from one person to the next. I am certainly someone who's in this category. I strive to put out music that I like first and foremost. Music that hopefully takes people outside of their day-to-day lives, at least for a minute, possibly in the form of dancing or toe tapping. It's a necessary service for humans, and it's a service that I've been providing in one form or another pretty much throughout my life. For me, it obviously goes beyond that as well, so I have this like full instructional channel showing people how to use electronic music gear, fresh takes on how to use it. And then there's this second camp, and I would say the majority of DAWLESS users, or just music makers in general, people who thrive in like a tech/music environment, who aren't really pressuring themselves to put out music. Maybe someone who's just looking for like new ways to be creative with a given instrument, almost like a therapeutic quality for it. Just take a bit of time out of your day to be creative. Also, I should bring up, there's a bonus third camp of people who are just like addicted to buying gear, and it's not really about the music, it's just about having the gear. We'll be touching on these three camps throughout the video, and identify yourself. Like, would you say you're in the first camp, second camp, third camp, maybe a combination of all three? Let us know in the comments. There's actually a guest appearance in this video as well, Bobeats. I'm sure plenty of you know who he is. He's been doing this for a while now, and he's generous enough to have given his take on this whole concept, the whole DAWLESS concept as well. All this being said, whatever camp you're in, this video is applicable to all of us. I also want to make it clear that I'm still in this. I'm still very much in the DAWLESS world. This is not a signal of me like distancing myself from DAWLESS. Not at all. This is also not a complaint video, but there are, shall I say, some realities to entering into the DAWLESS world. There's some problems that are sort of built into it, some obstacles perhaps, and in true LK fashion, we'll be going through some solutions to those obstacles as well, ones that I've found helped. If you're new to DAWLESS, there's some information in this video that might help you decide whether or not it's actually for you, and be sure to check out the chapters in the description if you'd like to jump to something specific within this video. First off, DAWLESS is expensive as f***. I've had an interesting transition over the past 2 or 3 years. I definitely did not start DAWLESS. It's something that I sort of just fell into. I started very young as a performer on drums. It was my profession for many years. I transitioned into music production, commercial music, things like that, producing artists, and that sort of led into this YouTube channel, and that's how it started. I was focusing a lot more on music production, like Logic Pro at the start, but for the past while now, it's been very gear-oriented, so any sort of electronic music production hardware, things outside of a DAW like Logic or Ableton. Learning this gear has been the most music-related, time-consuming thing that I have ever done. I'm in a lucky position now where I work with a lot of synth companies, so they'll send me gear in exchange for content. I've accumulated probably over 30 machines over the past 2 years. So that's like groove boxes, synths, samplers, whatever else. I'm definitely at the point now where I'm considering purging, selling some stuff because yeah, it's too much. I can't keep up with all of it. And the time consumption is real, especially compared to traditional instruments. So like, let's say drums or a guitar. So if I bought, let's say a new cymbal, I wouldn't have to learn anything when I bought it. The cymbal would sound different. I might have to hit it a little bit differently. Same with guitars, right? Let's say if you buy like a new guitar, it just feels different. You have to get used to it. I would say that with traditional instruments, the time consumption comes with like actually honing your craft. So becoming a really good guitar player, learning all your scales, doing your rudiments, tut-tut-tut, paradiddle, paradiddle. If you know, you know. It's just not the same as like really focusing and diving into a manual or hitting up several YouTube videos, to learn, you know, how X syncs with Y.
But actually X doesn't really sync efficiently with Y because there's a bug, and hopefully they fix it on the next update.
Oh crap, they didn't fix it, but I spent $1,000 on this piece of gear and it doesn't do the thing that I thought it was capable of doing.
Etc, etc, etc. It's never ending. It consumes you, sometimes in the wrong ways. Like, it's easy to get sucked in. Are you more interested in reading manuals or actually making music? Regardless of whether or not you're in camp 1 looking to produce a product, or in camp 2, someone who's just using it as an outlet, it's important to know that the initial time spent before actually coming up with something interesting or like fresh, it's a lot of time. Something to consider. There's like an engineering slash figure it out slash DIY quality to DAWLESS, which obviously is an attraction to us. And this whole topic that I'm mentioning is something that I spoke about with Midlife Synthesist on his channel. Check it out. For those of you who don't know, Midlife Synthesist is another synth YouTuber. Check out his channel in general. He's got some great content. You could spend hours and hours and hours researching a specific instrument on YouTube, which is something that I actually highly recommend that you do, but it's just not the same as actually owning that piece of gear, having it in front of you. In my experience, no matter how much research that you do, there's always going to be something about that piece of gear that it is unexpected and sort of hinders you in a way. A perfect personal problem with this is with the Digitakt. So the specific problem is that when you switch from one pattern to the next, the effects will reset. So if you can imagine this, let's say you're using like a filter going from one pattern to the next, and you want that filter to come back out when you enter into that second pattern. Unless that's an effects that you pre-automate going into that second pattern, everything's just gonna reset back to 0. So my first thought was the way around this is to purchase an Octatrack, because that's not an issue with the Octatrack, but is that gonna fit into my workflow? And also, what hindrances is the Octatrack gonna have? Is it worth dropping $1,000 on it just to fix this one problem? If you do decide to figure out a way around a wall, it'll without a doubt cost you money and time to research how to do it. Not to mention that your setup might like double in size over time. Space being another obvious downfall of DAWLESS, especially depending on how big the gear that you're purchasing is. You might want to clear out a closet or two.
Is your significant other mad at you yet?
These are all things to consider. Is this a journey that you think you'd enjoy? Is it affordable? Would you be better off with a cheaper and much more powerful alternative? A desktop DAW? Tread lightly, friend. Is it addiction or creation? I actually put together a video on this whole topic on gas gear acquisition syndrome. Here it is. This is a really important question to ask yourself when stepping into this world. Once again, it's definitely a spectrum. There is without a doubt an element of addiction to buying gear for all of us. And if you're watching this video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Serotonin! The real question though is, are your purchases justified, or are you just giving into the YouTube hype? Ironically, I'm aware that I am part of this problem. I put together tasty gear videos showing you how they sound, oftentimes on day 1, the day that they're released. But regardless of how many reviews you watch, how many times you've read the manual, do you really need another groove box? Like, just think about it before buying it. Personally, I like to put the music before the gear, so a good idea would be to watch performers on said piece of gear, and if it's a sound that you like, then maybe it's for you. And speaking of people who are part of the problem, here's Bo's take on the topic of this video.
Hello there everybody, my name is Bo, and thank you Liam for the invite. And yeah, I'm part of the problem. I'm the review guy who shows you all the cool toys that you may or may not want. But beside that, I've also been a DAWLESS jammer for the better part of 5 years. I think I need to reevaluate my life choices. In electronic music, there's this confusion between the creative process where you make art for art's own sake and the process of creating a product. Just think about it. A DAW is an environment, a production environment to finish music. That's the whole idea with it. It's specifically aimed at helping you creating the product, whereas DAWLESS setups are slightly more difficult to use to finish a product, but it puts you more in the moment. It focuses heavily on just having fun, exploring sound, exploring music. And I think there's something interesting going on here, where parts of the community kind of laugh about DAWLESS jamming because it's not so focused on finishing your music, i.e. creating the product. But that sort of critique misses that DAWLESS jamming is about exploring music for music's own sake, not for the sake of creating a product, becoming an artist, being successful, mostly in monetary sense. So I think that there's a deeper layer to it. I think that DAWLESS jamming has become kind of a counterculture to using a computer that we use and associate every day with work. And so when we get home, we want to use our hardware instruments, just have fun, explore sound, explore music, enjoy ourselves, and not have that being associated with being productive, making a product, becoming successful, you know? And some people record their jams and they share them, but it's not really to become successful. It's more about being part of a community of creatives that just explore music and sound. And maybe it explains why in today's super stressed society, people just want a piece of hardware to sit down with and just enjoy themselves. And there's no social media, there's no notification, it's just fun, it's music, it's art, it's sound. And then they turn it off and they go and do something else. So with all of that said, back to Liam.
The man himself. Thank you so much, Bo, for your very wise take on this. That being said, there's even another dimension to the performative product angle. There's knowing a piece of gear to be able to create with it. The next level of that is to be able to perform with said piece of gear, in which case you really have to know it inside out. So now multiply that by 2 or 3, because chances are you're using several pieces of gear within your set, or else you're really limited. Ultimately, what it comes down to is that you really have to have a passion for the journey that these unique little machines are going to take you on. Personally, I think that in life there's no real destination, and this holds especially true with DAWLESS. You really just have to enjoy that journey. The challenge of making DAWLESS music interesting. I've really been focusing on putting together a set over the past few months, and I've quickly realized that you're able to put together beats real quick. You're much less likely to be throwing down like bangers in a DAWLESS set. And when I say bangers, I mean like DJ Diplo style build-ups, huge drops. From what I've heard, it's just a different thing, maybe a little bit more introspective music. There's obviously a certain amount of sequencing and sampling and repeating within a DAWLESS set. It's just not the same as click playing a full-on track like a DJ and then transitioning from one to the other. You just have a lot more control over your parts, which gives you a lot more creative freedom, obviously. But the trade-off of this is that you only have 2 hands and a few machines, so there's only so much that you could do. I would say that you're much more limited to specific sounds and like much more stagnant kind of loop-based music. So how do you make it less stagnant? So the solution to that is, and the challenge to that, I should say, is build-ups and drops. I've seen quite a few DAWLESS performers, and that's definitely a weak point within, I would say, the majority of people's sets. And this is like the next thing that personally I'm spending time on within my set, is being able to drop. I call it the art of the drop. Most people are just gonna think that you're a DJ. I mean, to a certain degree, like, who cares about this point? But it's true. The majority of your friends, and maybe 95% of your audience, are gonna think that you're a DJ. Unless, of course, you're posting things online, in which case you're attracting people that are interested in DAWLESS. Completely different thing. But I'm talking about what I like to call normies. And by the way, a lot of producers aren't even that savvy in terms of DAWLESS. So like we're very specific. Let's talk about solutions or remedies to the problems or realities I've mentioned in this video. Coming at it from a putting out a product or even creative angle, I've learned pretty quick that the most important thing is to spend that extra time putting together a workflow and not so much like on a specific instrument. I think the trick is to find someone's set that you like, pick up their setup and just like imitate that with the gear that you have. Guaranteed, 100% you're gonna land somewhere completely different throughout this process of finding out what your gear is actually capable of doing. Finding an efficient workflow that works for you is definitely a lot more upfront work. Once you establish it, you're gonna have a much stronger foundation for producing quicker in the future. There's definitely a possibility of getting bored with like a specific setup, in which case just make like slight alterations to it to keep it interesting. I'm aware that this is like some hardcore performance advice that I'm giving right now, but even if you're someone who's openly just creating and exploring with a given piece of gear, this is the best way to figure out the limits or possibly even push the limits of the gear that you're using. And here's a solution to an obvious problem, which is spending money on gear. There's always going to be something unexpected with the gear that you buy, so it's important to possibly get your hands on it to fully understand it. If you live in an area where there's a synth shop nearby, rent the gear before you buy it, if it's possible. I actually recently did this with the RMX 1000 from Pioneer, which is essentially like an effects build up and drop machine. Essentially what DAWLESS sets are missing. It was recommended to me from a friend. It cost $80 Canadian, so that's like 60 US to rent for a week. Not bad. In this case, I actually do like it. I did a performance with it right here. If you would like to hear what it sounds like, how I'm using it. might buy it. And now about DistroKid and what I think is their best feature, Hyperfollow, which is essentially a free link in bio link. It's kind of a curveball because DistroKid is a music distribution platform, so they're stepping into the social media promotion realm. They do it so well. Totally free tool for members. You're essentially able to put together a centralized link hub. It has a lot of the same features as paid tiers from other platforms, so that's great. I'll show you how mine looks, but first, I'm one of DistroKid's most active creators, and so they gave me this special discount link for you guys to use in case you're not already a member. Go to Hyperfollow and reserve your username. From there, you can fill in your info. As a side note, other platforms charge you specifically for ad tracking. DistroKid or Hyperfollow offers that for free. And here is the final result. So I've embedded my latest YouTube video, my latest single, social links, other important links I'd like to lead people to. It's all there. DistroKid is the best. Get your music onto platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Amazon Music, like hundreds of other platforms. You know what to do. Hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. Thank you so much to Bo for making an appearance. I really appreciate you guys watching. We're kind of all together in this little DAWLESS journey. Happy to help you guys out. If you have any questions or comments, please do not hesitate to leave those in the comments section. Let's get a dialogue going. You can also text me. I've left a link to my Perfect Circuit artist pick in the description as well. That's essentially a list of like some of my favorite gear or gear that I've owned that I use. Check it out. Maybe there's some gear that you guys are interested in. Like, subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more. And of course, hope to see you guys in the next video.